Over its long history, the narrative in Star Wars has often touched on the Mandalorians, especially now when the new season of The Mandalorian has returned to screens. The appearance of these warriors has generated a lot of lore and with it speculations and myths. Some of these myths have been around so long that they are commonly accepted as truth, but we are here to set the record straight. Today, we're going to be discussing myths about Mandalorians that you need to stop believing. First up is the myth that all Mandalorians are humans. Many people believe that all Mandalorians are humans because they are depicted as humans in both live action and animated shows. We got Boba and Jango, Din, Bo-Katan, and many, many more. However, Mandalorians can actually be of any species. In fact, the Mandalorians are a culture composed of members from multiple species or origins and bound by a common creed, language, and code. Although in the mass-oriented projects we got Mandos as humans and humans only, in lesser-known projects like games and comics, species range from humans to humanoid aliens such as Twi'leks and Zabraks. Not to mention that the so-called founding fathers of planet Mandalore, who later became the first Mandalorians, were not humans at all. Their species was called Tongs, they were native to ancient Coruscant and were very militaristic. I guess the apple never falls far from the tree. One more myth that needs to be addressed is the belief that Mandalorians are one big family who always stand united. While Mandalorians do have a strong sense of community and shared identity, they are not immune to infighting and disagreements. In reality, there have been times when Mandalorian factions have fought against each other, with different clans having different goals, beliefs, and priorities. For example, there were at least 3 Mandalorian civil wars, during which multiple factions fought for control, each with their own agenda and leadership. At the same time, despite possible differences, Mandalorians are still united by a common history, culture, and set of values. Next up, we have the myth that is probably my favorite. The Mandalorians and the Jedi hate each other. Of course, we can't deny the fact that Mandalorians and Jedi have been at odds throughout their long relationships. Yes, they fought countless battles against each other. Yes, they had completely different beliefs and ways of life. And yes, Mandalorians were very often allies with the Sith. But there were also times when the Jedi and the Mandalorians battled side by side. For example, Obi-Wan Kenobi fought together with a group of Mandalorians during one of their civil wars. In the end of the Clone Wars, Ahsoka Tano led a battalion of clone troopers and Mandalorians in battle against other Mandalorians, loyal to Sith Lord Darth Maul. In addition, at some point in galactic history, there was a Mandalorian named Tar Vizsla, who became a Jedi. To me, the statement that the Mandalorians and the Jedi Order hate each other is more false than true. Not to mention that such an emotion as hatred is forbidden for light side warriors. Moving on to the myth that all Mandalorians are bounty hunters. The Mandalorians lived and thrived on war, seeking conflict and attaining glory through conquest. When there was no war campaign, many Mandalorian soldiers would indeed become bounty hunters and mercenaries. However, some became blacksmiths, engineers, combat instructors, and even politicians. During times of strength and prosperity, Mandalorians had a variety of occupations. Their main goal was to strengthen their society. Unfortunately, after the Great Purge of Mandalore, the society collapsed and the Mandalorians had to adapt to survive. Many became bounty hunters, mercenaries, and bodyguards to make a living. Beskar armor is highly prized in Mandalorian culture and is a defining characteristic of many Mandalorian warriors, including Din Djarin, Jango Fett, and Boba Fett. The armor made of Beskar could protect the wearer from blasters and even lightsabers. Have you ever watched a Star Wars project and seen a Mandalorian getting shot by a blaster and killed? You may wonder, how is that possible? Mandalorian armor is supposed to be the strongest in the galaxy. In reality, not every Mandalorian warrior wore armor made of the famous Beskar iron. Beskar was a rare and expensive metal that could only be found on the planet Mandalore and its moon Concordia. Beskar armor was often passed down through generations and not every Mandalorian had access to it. Warriors who were unlucky enough not to have such armor mostly used weaker alloys, such as Durasteel, which were much more common in the galaxy. Now that this video has helped to clear up some of the misconceptions surrounding Mandalorians, consider watching this video on what it was like to be a Mandalorian in the Old Republic. See ya!